I'm Jacqueline, 32 years old, and for 3 years I've been the silent financial backbone of my family, paying the mortgage on my parents' home. Despite my sacrifices, my brother Adam was always their golden child. I never expected that this Thanksgiving dinner would expose the painful truth that my financial support meant nothing compared to the blood ties I shared with them. My father's cold words still echo in my mind. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, like and subscribe to find out how I finally stood up for myself after years of being used. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in suburban Chicago, where my parents worked tirelessly to provide for Adam and me. My father, James, was a dedicated factory worker, and my mother, Patricia, worked as an administrative assistant at a local community college. They weren't wealthy, but they instilled in us the importance of hard work and education. From an early age, there was a clear difference in how my parents treated us. Adam, 2 years my junior, was charismatic, athletic, and socially adept. He could charm anyone with his infectious laugh and easygoing personality. Meanwhile, I was the serious, studious child who excelled academically, but lacked my brother's natural charm. While my parents attended every one of Adam's football games, they rarely made time for my debate competitions or academic achievements. After college, I pursued a career in financial consulting. I was determined to build financial security, having witnessed my parents' constant money struggles. By 30, I had established myself as a respected financial consultant with a prestigious firm in downtown Chicago, earning a comfortable six-figure income. Adam, meanwhile, bounced between jobs, never staying anywhere longer than a year, always chasing the next big opportunity that never quite materialized. 3 years ago, during a routine Sunday call with my mother, she broke down in tears, confessing that they were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments. The factory where my father worked had downsized, cutting his hours drastically, and they were facing foreclosure on the home they'd lived in for over 30 years. "We don't know what to do, Jackie," my mother sobbed. "We've tried everything. We might lose the house." Without hesitation, I offered to help. "I'll take care of the mortgage payments until Dad finds steady work again." I promised. What I thought would be a temporary arrangement became permanent. Every month for the past 3 years, $2,300 automatically transferred from my account to theirs. At first, the gratitude was overwhelming. My father, a proud man, initially refused, but eventually accepted with tearful thanks. My mother called me their guardian angel. But over time, that gratitude faded. It became an expectation then, an entitlement. The thank yous stopped. Conversations about my financial contributions were avoided. Meanwhile, when Adam would bring small gifts during his infrequent visits, like a bottle of wine or flowers, my parents would gush as if he'd given them the moon. I noticed other disturbing patterns. When I visited, I'd sleep in the small guest room, while Adam always had his old bedroom preserved exactly as he left it. My mother would cook Adam's favorite meals when he visited, but rarely offered the same consideration for me. My father would beam with pride discussing Adam's latest job prospect, but showed only passing interest in my career achievements. Still, I rationalized it all. Perhaps my parents didn't want to seem overly grateful and make me uncomfortable about the money. Maybe they felt they needed to give Adam more attention because he was struggling while I was successful. I buried my hurt feelings and continued supporting them, believing that family takes care of family. This Thanksgiving, I was determined to create the perfect family gathering. I took 3 days off work, something nearly unheard of in my demanding career. I spent over $300 on groceries, including an organic free-range turkey premium ingredients for all the traditional dishes and 3 bottles of my father's favorite bourbon. As I drove to their house on Wednesday evening before Thanksgiving, I allowed myself to hope that this holiday would strengthen our bonds. Perhaps the warm atmosphere of Thanksgiving would finally help my parents see and acknowledge all that I had done for them. Little did I know that this Thanksgiving would instead tear those bonds apart completely. I arrived at my parents' suburban home Wednesday afternoon, the trunk of my car loaded with grocery bags and my overnight suitcase. The familiar two-story colonial looked festive with the autumn wreath I had sent last week hanging on the front door. As I juggled multiple bags up the walkway, I noticed my mother peering through the living room curtains. Rather than coming out to help, she simply opened the door as I approached. "Hi, Mom." I said, slightly out of breath from carrying the heavy bags. Happy almost Thanksgiving. You're early, she replied, holding the door open. I wasn't expecting you until dinner time. Her tone wasn't unfriendly, just matter of fact. I thought I'd come help with the preparations, I explained, setting the bags down in the entryway. I brought everything for tomorrow's dinner. My mother glanced at the bags but didn't comment on my generosity. Instead, she said, Your father's watching his program in the den. Try not to disturb him. I nodded and began carrying the groceries to the kitchen. As I unpacked the premium ingredients, my mother's phone rang. Her entire demeanor changed when she saw the caller ID. Adam! She exclaimed, her voice rising with genuine delight. Are you and Natalie on your way? I couldn't help but notice the transformation. For the next 15 minutes, she paced the kitchen, laughing and engaging enthusiastically with my brother, while I silently organized ingredients and checked the recipe I'd planned for tomorrow's feast. No, don't worry about bringing anything, my mother assured Adam. Jacqueline bought everything already. You just bring yourselves. After ending the call, my mother turned to me with a smile that hadn't been there when I arrived. Adam and his new girlfriend will be here tomorrow morning. He just got promoted at his new job. Isn't that wonderful? That's great, I replied, genuinely happy for my brother despite the sting of the different welcome we'd received. What's the new position? Something in marketing, she waved dismissively. Your father and I are so proud. He's finally finding his way. I bit my tongue, remembering how my recent promotion to senior financial consultant had been acknowledged with nothing more than a brief, "That's nice, dear," during our monthly phone call. As I began preparing the turkey for brining, my father finally emerged from the den. He gave me a quick nod of acknowledgement before opening the refrigerator. Patricia, where's that beer Adam brought last time I told Frank I'd save him one to try? I think we drank them all, James, my mother replied, but Jacqueline brought some bourbon for tomorrow. My father frowned slightly. Not the same thing. He turned to me. Since you're here, could you take a look at the garbage disposal? It's been making that noise again. No, hello, no, how are you? Just a request for help. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel. Sure, Dad. Let me finish with the turkey first. As I worked in the kitchen, I noticed several new items around the house that hadn't been there during my last visit 2 months ago. A large smart TV had replaced the older model in the living room. New leather recliners sat in place of the fabric sofa that had been there for years. My mother wore a pearl necklace I hadn't seen before. Did you redecorate recently? I asked casually. Oh, just a few updates, my mother said. Adam helped us pick out the TV when he was here last month, and he gave me this necklace for my birthday. I frowned slightly, knowing that my brother's salary at his previous job barely covered his own expenses. How was he affording such generous gifts? Meanwhile, I'd been transferring money for their mortgage and had sent them additional funds twice when they mentioned unexpected medical bills. Later that evening, as I was setting up the guest room, I overheard my parents talking in their bedroom across the hall. Should we ask her about the roof? My father's voice carried through the partially open door. Not yet, my mother replied. Wait until after dinner tomorrow when everyone's in a good mood. She just got that promotion, so she should have some extra money now. The contractor wants half up front. That's almost $4,000. I know, but she won't miss it. Look how much she spent just on Thanksgiving dinner. I froze the spare pillowcase in my hands. They were planning to ask me for more money on top of the mortgage payments, and they were discussing it so casually, as if my finances were a resource they were entitled to. That night, I barely slept, turning their conversation over in my mind. I told myself I was overreacting. Surely they appreciated what I did for them. Surely there was an explanation for the new electronics, furniture, and jewelry that didn't involve taking advantage of me. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would be about family and gratitude. I just needed to keep faith. Thanksgiving morning dawned bright and cold. I woke early and headed to the kitchen to start preparations, determined to create a memorable meal that would bring us together as a family. My mother joined me after an hour, helping with smaller tasks while I handled the turkey and more complex dishes. Around 11, the doorbell rang and my parents rushed to answer it. Adam's booming laugh filled the entryway, followed by the introduction of his new girlfriend, Natalie. She was petite with warm brown eyes and a shy smile, clutching a small bouquet of flowers. Mom, Dad, this is Natalie, Adam announced proudly. My parents enveloped them both in warm hugs. "Those are beautiful flowers," my mother gushed, taking the small bouquet as if it were a priceless gift. I wiped my hands and stepped out of the kitchen to greet them. Adam gave me a quick side hug before turning back to our parents. "Wait till you hear about my promotion," he said excitedly. "Marketing director at Thompson Media." "That's amazing," I said, genuinely impressed. Thompson Media was a respected firm, and marketing director was a significant position. "Congratulations." "Thanks, sis," Adam replied with a wink. "Not all of us can be financial wizards like you, but I'm catching up." "Natalie, would you like something to drink?" my father asked, already leading them toward the living room. "We have that special coffee you brought last time, Adam." I returned to the kitchen feeling somewhat invisible, despite being the one preparing the entire feast. My mother popped in briefly to grab drinks for everyone. "Jacqueline, could you bring out some snacks for everyone?" she asked. "And don't forget to fix the garbage disposal before dinner." I nodded, arranging a cheese plate with the gourmet selections I'd brought, then carried it out to the living room. The conversation stopped abruptly as I entered, making me wonder what they'd been discussing. "Smells amazing in there, sis," Adam said. "Always the overachiever, right?" "Just trying to make a nice Thanksgiving," I replied, setting down the plate. "Jacqueline works too hard," my mother said to Natalie. "Always has, never takes time for a personal life." "Speaking of which," my father interjected, "Adam tells us you two might be looking at houses soon." Adam put his arm around Natalie, who blushed. "Maybe. With this promotion, we're thinking about settling down." "That would be wonderful." My mother clasped her hands together. "Natalie, you should see the baby pictures of Adam. He was the most beautiful child." As they launched into stories about Adam's childhood, I excused myself to check on the turkey. In the kitchen, I noticed a Best Buy receipt on the counter near my mother's purse. Normally, I wouldn't look at someone else's receipt, but the total caught my eye. $1,879.63, dated just last week. The items listed included a soundbar for the new TV and an iPad. My stomach tightened. Where was this money coming from? If they couldn't afford their own mortgage? I pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on creating the perfect meal. By 4 o'clock, everything was ready. The dining table looked like something from a magazine with the golden brown turkey, as the centerpiece surrounded by all the traditional sides. I'd used my grandmother's china and crystal glasses that had been carefully stored in the cabinet for special occasions. As everyone took their seats, my father stood to carve the turkey. "Before we eat, I want to propose a toast," he announced, raising his glass. "To Adam and his new promotion. Son, we always knew you would do great things. You've made us proud." Everyone raised their glasses. I sipped my wine, trying not to feel hurt that my contributions, both culinary and financial, went unmentioned. The dinner conversation flowed pleasantly at first. Adam dominated with stories about his new position, while Natalie occasionally glanced at me with what seemed like curiosity. When there was finally a lull, I decided to join in. "The house looks great," I said casually. I noticed the new TV and furniture. Very nice choices. "Adam helped us pick everything out," my father replied proudly. "He knows all about the latest technology." I nodded slowly. It must have been quite an investment. I know things have been tight financially with the mortgage and all. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My mother quickly tried to change the subject, but Adam interrupted. "Speaking of investments," he said, "I have a surprise announcement. Mom, Dad, I'm taking you on a cruise this spring. Caribbean, 10 days, all expenses paid." My parents gasped in delight, my father clapping Adam on the shoulder. "That's incredible, son." I stared at my brother in confusion. Even with a promotion, such an expensive gift seemed beyond his means, especially if he was saving for a house with Natalie. "That's very generous," I said carefully. "Those premium cruises can cost over $10,000. Adam's smile tightened slightly. "Well, some of us know how to enjoy our money instead of hoarding it." "I'm not hoarding anything," I replied, feeling defensive. "I just think it's important to be financially responsible, especially when—" I hesitated, then decided to address the elephant in the room. "Especially when I'm still covering the mortgage payments so you don't lose this house." The atmosphere in the room instantly chilled. My father set down his knife and fork, his expression darkening. "No one asked you to keep paying it this long," he said stiffly. Dad, you and Mom can't afford it on your own right now, I pointed out. I'm happy to help, but I'm just confused about all these new purchases and expensive gifts when basic bills are still a struggle. Adam rolled his eyes. Here we go. St. Jacqueline always keeping score. I'm not keeping score, I protested. I just want to understand what's happening. What's happening, my father said, his voice rising, is that Adam is showing his appreciation for his family in a meaningful way, not just throwing money at a problem. I felt as if I'd been slapped. Paying your mortgage isn't throwing money at a problem. It's keeping a roof over your head. And you never let us forget it, do you? My father retorted. James, my mother warned quietly, glancing at Natalie, who was staring at her plate. No, Patricia, I'm tired of the implied criticism, my father continued. Just because Jacqueline helps with bills doesn't give her the right to question every decision we make. I'm not questioning every decision, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I'm just trying to understand how we can afford cruises and electronics when I'm told you can't afford the mortgage. And now I overhear you planning to ask me for roof repair money. My father's face flushed red. Been eavesdropping, have you? It wasn't intentional, but yes, I heard you discussing how to ask me for more money. Adam jumped in. Maybe if you weren't so rigid with your money, they wouldn't have to strategize about asking their own daughter for help. Something inside me snapped. That's rich coming from you. What exactly have you contributed all these years? I contribute what matters, Adam shot back. Time, attention, love. Not just cold, hard cash with strings attached. There are no strings attached. Enough. My father slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. He pointed at me, his finger trembling with anger. Get out. Paying mortgage doesn't make you blood. You think your money buys you the right to control this family? It doesn't. A stunned silence fell over the table. I felt the blood drain from my face as my father's words sank in. My mother leaned toward me, her voice a harsh whisper. You're jealous of your brother's success. You always have been. Just because you found success first doesn't mean you get to diminish his achievements. I looked from one parent to the other, then to Adam's smug expression, and finally to Natalie, who appeared deeply uncomfortable. Her eyes met mine briefly, and something in her expression made me think she knew more than she was letting on. Without another word, I placed my napkin beside my plate, stood up, and left the dining room. Behind me, I could hear my mother calling my name, but I didn't turn back. The perfect Thanksgiving dinner I had spent days preparing sat abandoned on the table as I climbed the stairs to find solitude and make sense of what had just happened. In the quiet of my old bedroom, now converted to a guest room with barely any trace of my childhood, I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what had just occurred downstairs. My hand shook as I reached for my phone, tempted to call a friend, anyone who might help me make sense of my father's cruel words. Paying mortgage doesn't make you blood. The statement kept echoing in my mind. 3 years of financial support, over $80,000 transferred from my account to theirs, and in their eyes, it meant nothing compared to Adam's charisma and empty promises. I looked around the room, noticing how thoroughly my presence had been erased. Unlike Adam's room down the hall, which still featured his high school football trophies and posters, this space held no evidence that I had ever lived here. The walls had been repainted from my favorite blue to a neutral beige. The bookshelf that once housed my collection of classics was now decorated with generic ornaments and a few framed photos, none of which included me. In need of grounding, I opened the bottom drawer of the desk, where I used to study, hoping to find some remnant of my past self. The drawer stuck slightly, and when I finally pulled it open, I was surprised to find a stack of mail tucked inside. Curiosity getting the better of me, I picked up the envelopes and realized they were addressed to me at my parents' address. Most were bank statements and credit card offers, things that must have continued coming here after I moved out. What caught my attention was a bank statement from 6 months ago still sealed. It seemed odd that my parents would store my mail rather than forwarding it. Without thinking, I tore open the envelope. What I saw made my breath catch. It was indeed my bank statement showing the regular $2,300 transfer to my parents' account labeled Family Support Mortgage. But there was another transaction that same day I didn't recognize, a cash withdrawal of $1,000 from a branch near my parents' home. I never made that withdrawal. With growing unease, I opened more envelopes. Another statement showed similar unauthorized activity. Someone had been accessing my account, and given the location of the transactions, it could only have been one of my family members. But how I always kept my banking information secure. Then I remembered. When I first set up the automatic transfers for the mortgage, I had used my mother's computer. I must have forgotten to log out, or perhaps they had somehow obtained my passwords. Digging deeper into the drawer, I found more disturbing evidence. Credit card statements addressed to my parents showed large purchases from electronics stores, jewelry shops, and even travel agencies. The dates corresponded with new items appearing in their home, and Adam's increasingly lavish gifts. Most damning of all was a printed email conversation between Adam and my father. The subject line read, "Re Jackie's visit next week," and the preview showed Adam's response. "Don't worry about the story for the TV, just tell her I got a bonus. She'll believe it." With trembling fingers, I unfolded the paper and read the full exchange. It revealed a calculated system where my parents were diverting a significant portion of my mortgage payments to Adam, who would then gift them items they wanted. They had been creating an elaborate fiction to hide the fact that they were essentially laundering my financial support through Adam, to maintain the illusion that he was the generous, successful son. Another email from Adam read, "Jackie's so wrapped up in her fancy job, she'll never notice the extra withdrawals. She makes too much money anyway. It's only fair we all benefit." The betrayal was breathtaking. Not only were they misusing the funds I provided for the mortgage, but they were actively conspiring to take more without my knowledge. And Adam, far from being the successful professional they boasted about, was complicit in this deception, happy to take credit for generosity funded entirely by me. I gathered all the evidence and walked downstairs, my shock giving way to a cold anger. In the living room, I found my parents and Adam engaged in hushed conversation, while Natalie sat awkwardly on the periphery. They fell silent when they saw me. "Jacqueline," my mother began, her tone conciliatory, "we should all calm down and—" I held up the papers in my hand. "Would someone like to explain why there are unauthorized withdrawals from my account? Or why Adam's gifts to you seem to coincide with my money disappearing?" The color drained from my mother's face. My father stood up defensively. "You had no right to go through our private papers," he blustered. "These aren't your private papers," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "These are my bank statements that you kept hidden from me and evidence that you've been stealing from me." Adam jumped to his feet. "That's a serious accusation, sis. No one stole anything." "Then how do you explain this?" I thrust the emails toward him. "Planning your stories, coordinating what to tell me, using my money to buy gifts and take credit for them." Natalie's eyes widened as she looked between Adam and me. "Adam, what is she talking about?" Adam's face flushed. "It's not what it looks like. Jacqueline has always been jealous because Mom and Dad are more proud of my accomplishments. She's just trying to make me look bad." "Your accomplishments?" I laughed bitterly. "What accomplishments? That cruise you're treating them to. That's my money. The TV, the jewelry, all of it funded by me while you take the credit." My father stepped forward. "Now you listen here. We raised you, put food in your mouth and clothes on your back for 18 years. If we needed some extra help and didn't want to bother you with every little expense, that's our business." "Bother me?" I was incredulous. "You didn't not bother me. You actively deceived me. You let me believe my brother was being generous when he was actually helping you steal from me." "We're family," my mother interjected tearfully. "Family helps each other. Adam needed some financial help too, and we knew you wouldn't understand." "Wouldn't understand what?" "That while I was working 60-hour weeks and sacrificing my own financial goals to keep you from losing your house, you were funneling my money to Adam." "You're right. I don't understand that at all." Adam's expression turned ugly. "Always the martyr, aren't you? Jackie, always have to be the perfect, successful daughter. You love lording your money over us, making us feel small. At least this way things were more equal." "Equal?" I stared at him in disbelief. "You took credit for my generosity, made me look stingy in comparison, and actively participated in stealing from me. How is that equal?" "You make 6 figures," Adam shouted. "You'll never miss it. Meanwhile, I'm trying to build a life with Natalie, trying to make Mom and Dad proud. And all they ever talk about is how successful you are. So this was revenge punishment for my success. It wasn't like that. My mother insisted, though her eyes couldn't meet mine. We just needed a little extra, and we knew you'd say no if we asked for more than the mortgage. You don't know that because you never asked, I said, my voice breaking. I've never said no to helping you. But this betrayal, this manipulation, I can't forgive this. The room fell silent as the weight of my words sank in. Decades of family dynamics suddenly came into sharp focus. I wasn't the loved daughter who happened to be successful enough to help her struggling parents. I was the family ATM valued only for what I could provide, while Adam remained the golden child regardless of his actual contributions. I think I understand now, I said quietly. I've never been part of this family, not really. I've just been its financial support system. That's not true, my mother protested weakly. Isn't it Dad just said it himself? Paying the mortgage doesn't make me blood. I gathered the documents and turned to leave. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. Don't expect any more payments from me. As I headed for the stairs to pack my overnight bag, I heard my father call after me, his voice no longer angry but alarmed. Jacqueline, don't be hasty. We can talk about this. But there was nothing left to talk about. A lifetime of unequal treatment had culminated in this moment of clarity. As I packed my belongings, I could hear the raised voices downstairs, my parents blaming Adam. Adam defending himself, and through it all, the unmistakable sound of a family realizing that their financial foundation was crumbling beneath them. I drove aimlessly through the darkening streets of my childhood neighborhood, tears blurring my vision. The perfect Thanksgiving meal I had prepared lay half-eaten on the dining table, a fitting metaphor for the relationship with my family, my contributions consumed, but never truly appreciated. After pulling into a park overlooking the lake, I shut off the engine and finally let the sobs come. Years of rationalizing, of making excuses for their behavior, of believing that my financial support would eventually translate into the love and recognition I craved, all of it crashed down around me in an instant. My phone rang, displaying Lauren's name. Lauren had been my best friend since college, the person who knew me better than anyone. I hesitated before answering, not wanting her to hear me in such a state. Jackie, happy Thanksgiving. Her cheerful voice contrasted sharply with my mood. Hey! I managed, my voice barely audible. There was a pause. What's wrong? You sound terrible. The concern in her voice broke the dam. I told her everything. The confrontation at dinner, discovering the financial deception, the years of favoritism toward Adam that I'd tried to ignore. Oh, Jackie, Lauren sighed when I finished. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but honestly, I've watched this pattern for years. Your family has always taken advantage of your generosity while putting Adam on a pedestal. What do you mean for years? I asked. Tis. Remember when you couldn't make it to my wedding because your mom suddenly needed you to help with your dad's medical appointments? But then they posted photos from Adam's baseball game that same weekend. I had forgotten that incident. Or perhaps I had filed it away with all the other disappointments I'd trained myself not to dwell on. Or the time you spent your entire bonus helping them replace their roof, and the next month they took Adam on that fishing trip to celebrate him finally paying off his credit card debt. As Lauren continued listing examples, a pattern emerged that I had been blind to. My family hadn't just recently started exploiting me, they had been doing it my entire adult life, and probably before that too. Jackie, I never said anything because I didn't want to hurt you, Lauren explained. But your family has consistently treated you as the reliable one, who doesn't need attention or appreciation, while Adam gets celebrated for the smallest achievements. Why didn't I see it? I wondered aloud. Because you love them and you wanted to believe they loved you the same way. There's no shame in that. Her voice softened. What are you going to do now? I took a deep breath, clarity beginning to replace the shock and hurt. I need to cut the financial ties. Completely. That's a good start, Lauren agreed. Do you have somewhere to stay tonight? I'll get a hotel. Nonsense. Come stay with us. Brian's parents are here, but they're leaving tomorrow. The guest room is yours for as long as you need it. After hanging up, I sat watching the moonlight on the lake, gathering strength for what I needed to do next. Around 9 o'clock, I drove back to my parents' house to collect my remaining belongings, hoping everyone had gone to bed. The house was quiet when I entered, but as I approached the kitchen for a glass of water, I heard voices from the den. Pausing in the hallway, I listened. "She'll calm down," my father was saying. "She always does. She's angry now, but she won't let the bank foreclose. She cares too much about her credit score and her image as the responsible one." "I don't know, Dad," Adam replied, sounding worried. "You should have seen her face. I think we pushed too far this time." "Nonsense. We just need to give her a day or two, then your mother will call and smooth things over. Remind her about family loyalty." "And if that doesn't work?" my mother asked. "Then we lean on the guilt. Remind her how we sacrificed for her education, how we supported her when no one else would. She'll come around." "And the extra withdrawals?" Adam asked. "Should we come clean about those?" "Absolutely not," my father said firmly. "We deny everything. It's her word against ours. She has no real proof we knew anything about that." I had heard enough. Their discussion wasn't about apologizing or making amends. It was about manipulating me into continuing to support them financially. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were only sorry they'd been caught. In that moment, something hardened inside me. Years of emotional neglect combined with this financial exploitation had finally reached a breaking point. I quietly retrieved my suitcase from upstairs, packed the last of my belongings, and slipped out without confronting them. They had revealed their true selves when they thought I wasn't listening, and no explanation or apology could undo what I'd heard. Driving to Lauren's house, I made a decision that would change the course of my relationship with my family forever. The financial support that had been a one-way street for years was about to come to an abrupt and permanent end. The morning after Thanksgiving, while most people were enjoying leftover turkey sandwiches and Black Friday shopping, I was sitting in the office of my financial advisor, Bradley, who had agreed to meet me despite the holiday weekend. "Let me get this straight," Bradley said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. "You've been paying your parents' mortgage for 3 years, which amounts to $82,800, I supplied, plus at least another $20,000 in emergency expenses they've requested." Bradley whistled. "And now you've discovered unauthorized withdrawals from your accounts." I nodded, pushing the bank statements across his desk. "At least $15,000 over the past year that I can document. But there could be more." He examined the statements, frowning. "And you believe your parents used your saved login information to make these withdrawals?" "Yes. I set up the automatic mortgage payment on my mother's computer 3 years ago. I thought I had logged out, but apparently not. Or they wrote down my information." Bradley leaned back in his chair. "Jacqueline, this is serious. What they've done potentially constitutes identity theft and fraud." The words hung in the air. Part of me had known this, but hearing it stated so plainly made my stomach clench. "I don't want to press charges," I said quickly. "They're still my parents. I just want to stop the bleeding and make sure they can't access my accounts anymore." Bradley nodded understandingly. "We can absolutely do that. First, we'll need to close any compromised accounts and open new ones. We'll change all your passwords, set up two-factor authentication, and place fraud alerts on your credit reports." For the next 2 hours, we methodically worked through my finances. The automatic mortgage payment was stopped. My checking and savings accounts were closed and new ones opened with different account numbers. My credit cards were canceled and replaced. We changed every password associated with my financial life and set up additional security measures. As Bradley pulled up one of my credit card statements, he paused. "There's significant recent activity here. Over $500 in charges in the past 3 weeks." I looked at the statement and saw purchases from high-end department stores, electronics retailers, and several expensive restaurants, none of which I had authorized. "That's not me," I confirmed. "Those must be my parents or Adam using my card information." "We'll dispute these charges immediately," Bradley assured me, "and we'll shut down this card today." By early afternoon, we had erected a complete financial firewall between my money and my family. As a final step, I drafted a formal email with Bradley's help documenting my decision to end all financial support and addressing the unauthorized use of my accounts. The tone was professional and unemotional, exactly what I needed, when every feeling inside me was in chaos. "Are you sure you want to send this?" Bradley asked as his finger hovered over the send button. I took a deep breath and nodded. They need to understand this isn't a temporary reaction. This is a permanent change. The email went out with a quiet whoosh that belied its significance. Within minutes, my phone began ringing, first my mother, then my father, then Adam, one after another. I declined each call, not yet ready to hear their voices or their excuses. "What happens now?" I asked Bradley as we wrapped up our meeting. "Now you maintain your boundaries," he said kindly. "They may try to wear you down, but remember why you made this decision. It wasn't out of spite. It was for your own financial and emotional well-being." I left his office feeling both lighter and heavier. The weight of financial responsibility for my parents had been lifted, but it had been replaced by the burden of grief for the loving family I had always wanted but never truly had. The texts and voicemails began almost immediately. "Jacqueline, please call us. We need to talk about this." Mom: "You're overreacting. Family helps family. Call me back." Dad: "Way to go, drama queen. Mom's crying because of you." Adam: I silenced my phone and spent the rest of the day at Lauren's helping her family clean up their own Thanksgiving leftovers and trying to lose myself in normal, healthy family interactions. By evening, the tone of the messages had changed. "Jackie, please, the mortgage company called. Sid, we can't make the payment without you." Mom: "This is ridiculous. You can't just cut us off without warning." Dad: "Do you realize what you're doing to them? They could lose their home." Adam: I didn't respond to any of them, following Bradley's advice to give myself time and space before engaging. 3 days after Thanksgiving, the doorbell rang at Lauren's house. I opened it to find my parents standing on the porch looking simultaneously angry and desperate. "We need to talk," my father said, trying to step inside. I blocked the doorway. "I have nothing to say right now." "Nothing to say." My mother's voice rose. "You've shut down our mortgage payment, canceled the credit cards we use for groceries, and you have nothing to say." "Credit cards you use for groceries?" I repeated incredulously. "You mean the credit cards you used for department stores and expensive restaurants, the ones with over $8,000 in unauthorized charges?" My father's expression hardened. "We raised you better than this, Jacqueline. You don't turn your back on family." "Family doesn't steal from each other," I replied evenly. "Family doesn't manipulate and lie for years. We made some mistakes." My mother admitted her strategy shifting to contrition. "But you don't punish mistakes by leaving your parents homeless." "I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. And you won't be homeless because of me. You have options. You can sell the house and downsize. You can take out a reverse mortgage. Dad can look for full-time work again. What you can't do is continue to use me as your personal ATM." "Remember when you were 16 and crashed the car?" my father suddenly asked. "We didn't abandon you then. We supported you, helped you through it." I stared at him, amazed at the false equivalence. "That was an accident, Dad. You systematically deceived and stole from me for years. Those aren't comparable situations." "Please, Jackie," my mother pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "We're your parents. We gave you life, raised you, loved you." "Did you?" I asked quietly. "Did you really love me, or did you just love what I could do for you?" The question hung in the air between us. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in their eyes, as if they were asking themselves the same question. "This isn't permanent," I said finally. "I'm not saying we can never have a relationship again, but it will be a relationship built on honesty and mutual respect, not financial dependence and manipulation. Until you're ready for that, I have nothing more to say." I closed the door gently but firmly, leaning against it, as I heard them arguing with each other on the porch, before finally leaving. The begging had begun just as I had expected. But what surprised me was my own resolve in the face of it. For the first time in my adult life, I was putting myself first, and despite the pain, it felt right. A month after the Thanksgiving disaster, I sat in my therapist's office, a space that had become a sanctuary over the previous weeks. Dr. Marshall, a compassionate woman in her 50s, had been helping me work through the complex emotions surrounding my family's betrayal. "How are you feeling about the boundaries you've set?" she asked, about. I considered the question carefully. Stronger, I think. There are still moments of doubt, especially when my mother calls crying about bill collectors. But then I remember the emails, the planning, how calculated it all was. "It's natural to feel conflicted," Dr. Marshall assured me. "You're grieving the loss of the family relationship you thought you had while also establishing a healthier self-concept." That was exactly it. I wasn't just dealing with financial betrayal. I was reconstructing my entire understanding of my place in the family and my own worth beyond what I could provide. After the confrontation at Lauren's house, I had found a new apartment in a different neighborhood, one my family didn't know about. I changed my phone number, giving the new one only to trusted friends. I immersed myself in work, finding solace in the ordered world of finance, where numbers didn't lie and relationships were clearly defined by contracts. Lauren had been my rock through it all, providing both emotional support and practical advice. She'd helped me move into the new place and had introduced me to her wider circle of friends, creating a chosen family to replace the biological one that had damaged me so deeply. "I got an unexpected call yesterday," I told Dr. Marshall, "from Natalie Adams' girlfriend." "Oh, what did she want?" "To meet for coffee. She said there were things I should know." Dr. Marshall raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to go?" "I already did, I admitted. "This morning." The meeting with Natalie had been illuminating. We'd met at a quiet cafe far from my parents' neighborhood. Natalie had seemed nervous but determined. "I broke up with Adam after Thanksgiving," she'd revealed. "What I saw that day, the way your family treated you, it wasn't right." "Thank you for saying that," I'd replied, surprised by her candor. "There's more," Natalie had continued. "Adam told me things when we were fighting about what happened. He admitted that the whole scheme with your parents was actually his idea." I'd felt a cold stillness settle over me. "His idea?" Natalie had nodded, looking pained. "He has gambling debts, significant ones. He convinced your parents to help him access your accounts, promising to share whatever they could get. That cruise he was giving them, it was never going to happen. It was just part of the show." "And my parents went along with this?" I'd ask, though I already knew the answer. "They justified it by saying you owed them for raising you," Natalie had explained. "Adam played on their resentment of your success. He told them you would never miss the money, that you were just showing off by helping them." The revelation had hit me like a physical blow. Not only had my family stolen from me, but my brother had been the architect of the scheme, manipulating my parents' existing favoritism toward him and resentment toward me into a systematic plan to exploit me financially. "How do you feel about what Natalie told you?" Dr. Marshall asked, bringing me back to the present. "Angry," I admitted, but also clarified somehow. It confirms what I already suspected, that this wasn't just a few desperate decisions made in financial straits. This was calculated, ongoing exploitation. We discussed how this new information affected my healing process and my decisions about future contact with my family. Dr. Marshall helped me see that while it provided validation for my choices, it didn't fundamentally change the path forward. "Your boundaries were appropriate before this information, and they remain appropriate now," she emphasized. Outside of therapy, I was slowly rebuilding my life. The financial impact of cutting off my parents had been significant but manageable. I'd had to adjust some of my long-term savings goals, but Bradley had helped me create a new financial plan that would get me back on track within 2 years. More challenging was dealing with the emotional aftermath. My parents had reached out to extended family members, painting me as the villain who had abandoned them in their time of need. Aunts, uncles, and cousins had called or messaged, urging me to reconcile, unable or unwilling to understand the depth of the betrayal I had experienced. The mortgage company had begun foreclosure proceedings on my parents' house. When I heard this through a mutual acquaintance, I had felt a crushing wave of guilt followed by a reminder from Dr. Marshall that I was not responsible for the natural consequences of my parents' actions. They had options, she had pointed out. They could have been honest with you from the beginning. They could have downsized years ago. They could have sought financial counseling. They chose deception instead, and now they're facing the results of that choice. As Christmas approached, I declined the usual family gathering for the first time in my life. Instead, I spent the holiday with Lauren and her family, who welcomed me with genuine warmth. We cooked together, exchanged thoughtful gifts, and played board games late into the night. There was no underlying current of manipulation, no tally of who had given what. It was simply people who cared about each other, enjoying one another's company. In January, I began volunteering at a financial literacy program for young adults aging out of foster care. Using my professional skills to help others avoid financial pitfalls gave me a sense of purpose and helped channel my pain into something constructive. It was through this program that I met Mark, a fellow volunteer with a background in social work. Our friendship developed slowly and naturally based on mutual respect and shared values. He listened without judgment when I eventually shared my family's story, and his insight as someone who worked with troubled families helped me contextualize my experience without minimizing it. 6 months after Thanksgiving, I was grocery shopping when I literally ran carts with Adam in the produce section. My heart raced at the unexpected encounter, but I maintained my composure. "Jackie," he said, looking startled and slightly disheveled. "I didn't expect to see you here." "It's a public grocery store, Adam." An awkward silence stretched between us. He looked thin or tired with dark circles under his eyes. "How are Mom and Dad?" I asked, finally surprising myself with the question. "They moved in with Uncle Pete after the foreclosure," he replied. "It's tight, but they're managing." I nodded, unsure what to say next. "I'm in Gamblers Anonymous now," Adam volunteered, gesturing to a pamphlet peeking out of his pocket. 3 months sober from betting." "That's good," I said, and meant it despite everything. "Natalie told you, didn't she, about my part in everything?" I nodded again. "I'm sorry, Jackie." His voice cracked slightly. "I was jealous and desperate and made terrible choices. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to change." The simple apology, devoid of excuses or manipulation, was more than I had received from my parents in all their attempted communications. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "I hope it works out for you, Adam. I really do." We parted ways without drama or promises of reconciliation. It wasn't a Hollywood ending with tearful hugs and instant forgiveness, but it was real and honest, perhaps the first truly honest interaction we'd had as adults. As I drove home from the store, I reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed. I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, built meaningful connections with people who valued me for myself rather than what I could provide, and learned that family could be chosen as well as born. Most importantly, I had learned that my worth wasn't tied to financial support or sacrifice. Real love didn't come with balance sheets or conditions. It wasn't measured in mortgage payments or gifts, but in respect, honesty, and mutual care. I still had a long way to go in my healing journey. There were days when the hurt felt fresh, when I questioned my decisions, or missed the family I had thought I had. But those days were becoming fewer, and in their place was growing a quiet confidence in my choices and my future. The family I was building around me now might not share my blood, but they shared something more valuable, a commitment to treating each other with kindness and authenticity. And in that truth, I had found something I had been searching for all along, a genuine sense of home and belonging that no mortgage payment could ever buy. Have you ever had to make the difficult decision to cut ties with family members who were taking advantage of you? Comment below and share your experience. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is walk away from toxic relationships, even when they're with people who are supposed to love us unconditionally. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share to help others who might be going through similar situations. Remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not what you can provide. Thank you for listening to my story.